Oh boy, y'all in for a treat today. I have not figured out if this is rage bait yet, but as seeing the fat electrician has deigned to kind of comment in on this, and I think we're mostly on the same page with this, I felt that it would be an interesting time to discuss modern dating. Now, obviously, modern dating thing, modern and dating, right, obviously. Something that I myself am a single Pringle, whatever the kids say nowadays, right? But obviously, for obvious professional reasons, I don't use my platform as a quote-unquote dating hub, right? For all intents and purposes, my marital status, relationship status, etc., might as well be closed information. I'm transparent about it. Yeah, cool. But it's not. I don't use my work as a dating platform. In fact, I think that's actually a quick way to stop, doing what I do, because then at that point I just don't enjoy it anymore. However, this kind of came up recently, and there was a couple points here that I wanted to discuss and kind of how I got to certain conclusions. Now, we have this individual in question who ended up posting this rhetoric, as I will read. If a woman discovers that the child she gave birth to for her husband does not belong to her husband, she will still love that child regardless. Now, quick pause, quick interject. This is very evolutionary psychology. If you're talking about from a strictly evolutionary psychology standpoint, which parent is going to understand that that child is theirs, the mother or the father? Obviously the mother, because the mother is biologically egg, uterus, etc., right? Like that's how that works. So yeah, from a strictly evolutionary psychology standpoint, okay, we start getting into this rhetoric. But as soon as a man, apparently I had a stroke when reading this because that does not read the way it should. But as soon as a man DNA that he's not the biological father of the child his wife gave birth for him, he starts withdrawing his love. Now, I'm sure that there are many parallels people can draw. I'm sure that there are many situations, friends of yours, friends of friends, who've had a situation where it ended up being that their child was not theirs. Look, that is between them and their respective situations. This is a very touchy subject for a lot of people. I feel I at the very least can't acknowledge that. Which means that he never really loved the child, but because he thought the child is his. Interesting. That's why I tell women before you say I do, ask him, when we get married, do you promise to love any child that comes out of my insert body part here? I don't know if YouTube likes it or not. So, when we talk about this, there's a couple things that come to mind, and if anything, this actually does hold up a red flag. I'm sure someone, potentially maybe even like the dad of the kid, I'm sure many channels could point out the red flag here. The fact that the last sentence here, the quotation mark at the bottom, very specifically omits the source, feels like a red flag in the sense that this is going to enable some sort of cheating. This is going to enable some sort of dishonesty. At the end of the day, have 20 partners, have a polycule, I don't care. As long as it's consensual, everybody's involved, everybody actually knows how to communicate like an adult, why should I care, right? At the end of the day, I don't care. Have a polycule, have a monogamous relationship. You do you. I don't care. I have so many better things to do with my life. But this was one of those I immediately came to the snap judgment of, oh my god, this post is dumb. This is some really bad rhetoric. To which then I did see Fat Electrician. He does have a Twitter account, for those that I know were asking. A couple people didn't know he actually had a Twitter account. Here, free publicity, free advertising, go at it. He does have a Twitter account. I will say he is a little more opinionated on here, but at the end of the day, people are allowed to have opinions, even if you disagree with them. It's called being an adult. So, he does actually proceed to say, if a woman discovers that the child she gave birth to for her husband does not belong to her husband, end quote. In so many words to say, quote, if a woman cheats, end quote. What is this logic? Men are mean because if you cheat on them and lie about a child being theirs, they'll be upset. No fucking shit. They're upset. Honestly, hard to agree with them. So I decided to take this a little bit of a step further. And for obvious anonymity reasons, I will not be naming the person in question, but I reached out to a couple people on this. One was currently busy. Reached out to a couple female friends regarding this. To vary which specifically, I did ask them, ellipses, I think I need an adult to walk me through this rhetoric. You know how I like to paragraph on things and I send like 4 paragraphs? I got 4 paragraphs back and it was very enlightening. Yeah, mostly at the end of the day, kind of bullet pointing some of these things. Old-fashioned mindset, something about husband love your wives, women respect your husbands, but the logic being misinterpreted, misunderstood. It fits narratives, both way narcissism. General scale, think men are straightforward. Women can kind of do not so straightforward things. I mean, sure, maybe opinionative, maybe factual. I don't know. I don't really know where to delve into that one specifically. However, the point being made on that was why posts like this end up being a thing. You know, why does this feel less direct versus more direct, right? If there's one thing that I can appreciate the U.S. military for, especially talking to many just awesome and kind people from the United States military, you guys are direct. You guys are straightforward. I appreciate you for that. And thus something like this comes across as trying to be direct, but is in fact rather indirect. So at the end of the day, talking to this person, and I will have another female friend taking a look at this, who also says, yeah, this is kind of bad. This is kind of just justifying cheating. Like, here's the rationale that goes into this. But as it turns out, like, this is just justifying bad behaviors. So, which leads into the topic I was discussing earlier. This was actually necessary for the setup on this. At the end of the day, modern dating is, the fact that this even is something that has to come up kind of terrifies me. I cannot imagine trying to get into a relationship and then 6 months to 6 years down the line, this becomes a talking point, right? And we've talked a number of times, like, I don't care if you're in polyamory situations. I don't care if you're in a polycule. I don't care, right? You can't drop that on somebody, though. Sure, absolutely, things change. People change, right? If you go into a relationship expecting it to be monogamous and you say, I don't know, 6 months down the line, hey, I'm thinking about this polyamory thing. Look, respectfully, that's not what was discussed. You're more than welcome to pursue that, but I don't want to be here, right? And that's a very adult way to handle that. Or you talk through it, and maybe it's like, well, sure, maybe you are interested in this polyamory thing, but at the end of the day, you're kind of just like, well, I don't want to risk my relationship over this. It's not really worth it. You know, we'll do some spicy stuff together to kind of sub for that, right? And then I thought about it a little more, and as it turns out, that's not how people interact with each other anymore. A lot more people they get upset and they're afraid to be called wrong. You know, like, well, the world is flat. Excuse you? Well, now it's a personal attack against me because now you're just trying to attack me. No, I'm trying to provide you empirical scientific evidence, right? Like, people are so in their own head and so in their own echo chambers. And then you have people like this who just they have a semblance of some rhetoric and some rationale, right? The rationale of, like I said, you know, women respect your husbands, husbands respect your wives, that kind of thing, right? But it becomes, I don't know what the source of it is, honestly. Someone probably knows what I'm talking about. I have no idea what it comes from. This was just cited to me. Which, from a common sense perspective, yes, you want to make sure you're respecting adults and people in your lives, especially those you respect, right? That's the stance I'm coming from. So when I look at things like this, the fact that things like this are so commonplace and are kind of just there terrifies me, right? Now imagine this, and imagine, you know, hypothetically, we have a situation where I get into a relationship with a streamer or another YouTuber, right? Now, honestly, even if I did, you probably will never know. Because at that point, like, at that point, privacy becomes a concern, and at that point, there's people who will get weird about it, expectations, etc. No, we're not doing that. But then there's so much to wade through, and there's so many conversations to be had. And allegedly, I'm hearing that, and it's not a modern practice by any means as well, but the concept that potentially more fathers are kids to children that aren't theirs because somebody did something, and I need to find a father for my child. I feel like I'm bashing on women specifically. I'll get to bash men in a second, right? And then something, one thing leads to another, and we just did something super soon after getting together. Something, I'm pregnant. Something, one thing leads to another, right? And it's just hard to get a read on people like that. Now, I do want to state that it's not that I'm inherently against women. I'm not inherently like, oh my God, dude, there are some comments here that I will not repeat. I will not repeat some of the comments here. Something about there's some really interesting comments that have been in response to this. But like, the fact that this is more commonplace than it should be kind of low-key terrifies me. Like, imagine sitting, I was watching somebody, what was it? I was eating sushi, and somebody to the left of me was out on their first date, and he was telling her about his political, I think it was his ideology specifically, not his affiliation, his ideology about being more independent and free thinking or something like that. And I'm just like, bro, what happened to talking about like games? What happened to like, hi, what's your favorite Pokemon? Oh, I think that's cool. That's actually kind of cute. Yeah, I love it. Like, what happened to that? When we're opening up a first date where homeboy is quite literally just talking about socioeconomics and politics. Excuse you? Oh my God. I think that specifically is being a little too direct in certain ways. Here's Gengar, right? There you go. Cool. I thought that conversation already via chat had more substance than this conversation did, in my opinion. But I think that how this gets resolved, and I don't think it ever truly gets resolved. There's a lot of people with the sentiment of, Gen X getting in their relationships feel like the last chapter out of Knob. And I think there's a little bit of truth to that. I think that at the end of the day, it comes down to people being unable to talk to one another, people not feeling safe in being able to interact with each other. See the breakdown of the third place that we discussed in reactions previously, how you have that third place that's not work, that's not home, right? You have that third place, whether it's the bar, game shop, hunting lodge, etc., that you can just go to. But the breakdown of that has had knock-on effects for everybody's social life. And you don't really know if you get into a relationship like this and then be in a situation where you find out that, you've had a kid for 5 years, but this kid isn't even yours at that point. And it's expected that you just don't have any reaction to it. You just kind of accept it. Now, this isn't a call to action or anything to do things about it. I think that's subjective to each of your own situations, how you deal with it and how you would deal with this. I think that there are dialogues that do need to happen, but people aren't ready to have those conversations. And I personally, from a dating perspective, am not willing to engage with people who are not willing to engage in conversations, right? If somebody is going to say, well, I don't like this, and it's like, okay, but why don't you like that? And they just repeat rhetoric. It's somebody else's rhetoric, but they just repeat it. Is that going to be a good thing to build a relationship off of? Probably not. So that's kind of some of my reservations about this. This kind of actually caught my attention because the fat electrician did actually engage with this. I think him and I are kind of on the same page where this is dumb as fuck rhetoric. And this is just the latest in a long line of just one more bullet point in the latest gender wars, honestly, is what it comes down to. I choose to do better things with my time. And it does mean, unfortunately, that I will continue to be single because I'm not willing to sacrifice my own peace, happiness, safety, or security to get with somebody who's just the lights aren't on up there, honestly. And honestly, at the end of the day, if there's one thing you can take from this, I would take that you should make sure to talk to your partner or partners. You should make sure that you're in a situation that is, safe, secure. You have that communication. You can be adults with each other, and you can just cut all the bull crap. So, somebody asked. Hopefully you enjoyed that. This was definitely a very strange one, but yeah, definitely just posting L status, and I'll see you in the next one.